Yes, cheap is absolutely a relative term. If you were looking at buying a computer for this much money, you can get a serious desktop rig. But these new MacBooks have some real power to them as well, and this is absolutely the cheapest among the new Pro models. So why did I buy the cheapest version instead of speccing it out to the max? Get it? Because of the M1 Max? Let's find out. What's up, everyone? I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. So this is my MacBook Air. Again, the M1 MacBook Pro 14 will be here in a couple of days. These are just my reasons on why I pre-ordered the cheapest one. And I've seen an awful lot of excitement over the past week about the latest and the greatest from Apple. And as kind of a big fan of MacBooks myself, yeah, I'm pretty hyped. But most of the conversation has been centered around the highest end, the biggest GPU, the biggest storage options, and actually the physically biggest laptop. For me though, the one that I'm most excited about and the one that I purchased is the base model MacBook Pro 14. And I did that for a few reasons, so let's get into those right now. First note, I did actually purchase both a 14 and a 16-inch MacBook Pro. As a content creator making videos, I was always going to do that anyway, like I purchased the MacBook Pro 13 and the MacBook Air last year. However, if I was forced to only be allowed to get one, I easily would have only purchased the base model 14. And reason, number one, power. Real talk, fam. I've not yet hit the limits of the regular M1 chip. I routinely use both the MacBook Air and my M1 Mac Mini to great effect, and to this day, I haven't really hit the top limits of either of those machines. You have to remember that I do two things during my day. During the bulk of the day, I do my normal office day job, and as far as power goes, like, my wife's 2015 MacBook Pro 13 still has all of the power that I could ever need to check emails, create PowerPoint slides, and listen into meetings. Power for everyday folks is there in any of what Apple currently offers. Like even the iPad mini has enough power to do what an office worker needs. The other half of my time is dedicated to this YouTube channel, and there I do have a little more beefy power requirements because I do shoot all of these videos in 4K 10-bit. I routinely use the rather hard to edit high efficiency files because, let me tell you, it saves me half on storage space. And sometimes, as you've seen in my unboxing videos or videos where I'm doing something, I'll have 3 cameras going at once, and I need to stitch that together into some kind of coherent video. My M1 Mac Mini with its 8-core M1 processor and 16 gigabytes of unified memory handles all of that without a hitch. Like, I know I've mentioned this before, but I used to lease an iMac Pro for all of these videos, and it was a huge pain in the butt to use. But here, everything is smooth and fast for both creating and rendering the videos. Me, Gary here, is the slow point in the process now of video creation, and it's not my computer. So the fact that even the base model 14 comes with an even more powerful processor and GPU combination compared to what I've already got, like that's the vanilla on top of the M1 cake. Even if you look at both the core counts of the M1 and the M1 Pro, yes, they do both have 8. The distribution of how Apple has assembled those cores are different, however. The M1 has 4 and 4 between efficiency and performance cores, while the M1 Pro has 6 and 2 as the difference. So it's got 6 performance and 2 high efficiency cores. Plus the M1 Pro has a 14-core GPU at its base, almost double what the highest end M1 standard can do. And it's actually double compared to the 7-core GPU I have in my MacBook Air. So we're getting even more processing power and almost double the graphical power on top of a system that is already the smoothest and most efficient that I've ever owned. Wait, why did we buy an expensive one too, Gary? I know I'm being kind of facetious here, but I'm dead serious that while yes, you can absolutely spec the MacBook Pro 4 up to ludicrous levels, there will be very few folks that will actually be able to take advantage of that power. So why waste money on it? You know if you need the power, and if you are on the fence, maybe you don't. Okay, the next reason I purchased this specific model in the way I did is tied in with that power, and that's battery life. Battery life is easily one of the single most important features or specification for a piece of technology for me. I run around a lot, and I don't always have time to waste charging my technology. So being able to have that stressor totally taken off of my plate is amazing, and I will absolutely pay a premium to get it. Peace of mind, team, you cannot pay enough for peace of mind. I'll pay for it every day of the week. The M1 computers have easily the best battery life on anything I've ever owned. Heck, any computer that I've ever even heard of. 17 hours on the MacBook Air and 20 hours on the MacBook Pro 13. That's insanity. The MacBook Pro 14 comes in a little under the smaller Pro at 17 hours, which, like we said, it is quite good, and I think will be more than enough for what I personally need. But I assume that number is based off the lowest processor variant, and I further assume that every step up of the processor, and don't forget, that also increases the GPU, every step up that ladder will take a chunk of the life off the top. Yes, we don't have these in hand yet, so I don't know what kind of battery penalty it will be, but we already mentioned how much more powerful this should be over what I've currently been using, so why risk it? These are not cheap. why have that risk if I don't want to take it? Another reason that keeps up with the power perspective is I'm kind of nervous about how well a small-bodied laptop will be able to thermally handle a 10-core processor and 32-core GPU. Those are some crazy numbers. And from the power leaks we've seen recently, the M1 Max with its GPU can potentially have power rivaling some of those giant desktop computers I was already talking about earlier in the video. The difference is those giant desktop computers have huge fans in them that cool them down. And I'm concerned that all of that power in such a small compact body could have thermal issues. Now, I'm not saying that it will have issues. Apple processors are famously thermally efficient, and they don't actually use all that much power in the first place to cause heat. Reminder, I've literally never heard the fan turn on my Mac Mini, and I really hope they don't have problems. But much like the battery life issue, I'd rather not take the risk when I'm already getting so much more power included. When it comes to the physical body itself, there is a lot to like on the brand new MacBooks. One of the reasons I want to upgrade from the M1 standard laptops is for all of that additional I/O you'll get. Thunderbolt 4 isn't that much different from the third generation if you look strictly at data rates, but what it does give you is more compatibility with external devices. And here, you'll be able to plug in additional monitors to the computer instead of just the one that you are currently able to use from the Thunderbolt 3 included with the M1 standard Macs. It is a little confusing if you look at their website, but what I've been able to glean is you'll be able to do up to 2 external 6K displays via the Thunderbolt port on the M1 Pro and up to 3 6K displays plus a 4K display via Thunderbolt on the M1 Max. And then on top of that, on either of those configurations, you'll also be able to do an additional display at 4K through the HDMI port. So 3 displays with the M1 Pro and 5 displays with the M1 Max. I currently just use 1 display. So again, tripling my screen capabilities with the cheapest of the MacBook Pro 14. That sounds like it's right up my alley. The next reason, okay, we've been kind of dancing around the next reason a little bit, but another major reason to get the quote-unquote cheapest MacBook Pro is the price. We already said at the base model, this is still a wildly expensive computer at $1999. If you max this thing out, you are looking at an almost $6,000 machine. Yes, these are tools and you should buy what you need to get your job done. Well, my job doesn't require a Volkswagen Routan worth of computing power. Yes, I did just happen to Google what the best car for $6,000 is, and while that wasn't the actual top one was a Chevy Impala. Routan just sounds so much cooler. Spending the proper money for proper tools means that you'll be able to invest in other areas at the same time. Maybe instead of the most powerful computer that you can get in an Ultrabook, you could get in almost the most powerful computer that you can get in an Ultrabook and an external monitor or some other whole desk setup. That's the benefit of these new Macs for me, is how much they'll be able to slot in as both travel machines, but also pro-level desk machines. And you need a desk setup for that to work properly. So take that $4,000 additional dollars of difference and I don't know, get some kind of ancient mahogany desk to show off with your laptop. Wow, Gary, that got off into left field way too quickly. But the point stands, I'm buying this because it will ultimately save me money to not overspend on gear that's too powerful for my needs. And the last reason I'm buying the cheapest MacBook Pro 16, instead of necessarily buying the 16 for my personal primary use, is I like smaller tech. You listen to me talk about it all the time, where I like the iPad mini, I like the iPhone mini, I like gear and equipment that doesn't overly get in my way, even though getting the bigger options sometimes means it's more powerful or has better battery life. You've seen it in a ton of my accessory videos. I love that cheap little Lenovo backpack that I've been using for 2-3 years now, and it only has room for so much stuff. So having the smallest yet incredibly powerful laptop that can fit in both a tiny cubicle desk, a Plains travel desk thing, or even my little dock at home, that's really important to me. Nothing drives me more crazy when I'm trying to get work done on the road than having one of those giant 16 and 17-inch laptops. It's such a pain. No, I haven't traveled much in the last couple of years, but I'm always hopeful that it could start again someday. I don't necessarily like being trapped in my basement all the time. And the most frustrating thing about trying to get projects done on the move is when your computer is just too big to actually fit anywhere. So thumbs up all around for the smallest of the Pro laptops. But at the end of the day, so what, right? Team, even though it seems maybe from recent videos that I've kind of been a little hesitant to recommend it or hesitant on the MacBook Pro 14, I'm crazy excited for it. This is exactly what I've wanted in a laptop for the past 3 years. And the fact that I'm actually getting it, it's kind of stunning to me. It's kind of shocking that I'm actually getting basically everything that I've wanted. And I hope that I'm not going to be like a dog that chases the car only to catch it and then not know what to do with his life from now on. I think this is going to be incredible, but I really think it's going to be incredible for me. So I need you to really stop and think about what you need and if it will be just as good for you, because I think the M1 standards will still have an awful lot of power and usability while also costing about half as much as even the cheapest of the M1 MacBook Pros. It does look like it's going to be phenomenal, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. And if you like this video and you are not yet sure about your requirement, here's a link to my video that I did where I compare the MacBook Pro 14 to the MacBook Air and why all of that power might not be for everything and it might not be for everybody. And you can find it by clicking right here. Click, 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 click. Thanks for watching.